arriving into the scene, you know you're a little bit late for a shift you're supposed to be working at the junk drawer. You also know Winward's not going to get too upset with you over that because Laurent's there, so it should be fine. And you really can't miss this meeting with George, even though George is not always on time. So you are sitting in this tiny little hole-in-the-wall Chinese food place that is literally a tiny trailer that was once attached to a building, except for the building is gone. The trailer is still there because George is not about to let that place go.
Oh, yeah. George is all about tradition.
And it's a really good cashew chicken. It's food there is very good. It's the Magic Walk, or aka Miss Petty's fantastic place. I think it still exists in real life.
Awesome. Well, I have probably ordered that cashew chicken because George would not stop talking about how good it is. So finally, Kyle has ordered it. And I'm going to roll just to randomly decide whether it was good or not. Brianna, would you say odds are even for me, please?
Let's go with evens.
Kyle is not impressed, but Kyle is not about to tell George that. It's just, I've lived in the city. I know how good cashew nuts are, and I think George has been here too long. That's why he thinks this is good.
It may not be your favorite, but it's all right.
Yeah.
Let's give our listeners an idea of what does Kyle look like as they're sitting in this booth waiting for George.
Kyle is androgynous. Certain times of the day, maybe you'll see Kyle feeling a little bit more femme than usual and is wearing, very feminine outfits. But most of the time, Kyle is very mask. Side shave. Wears a suit, actually, because I look great in a suit and I will take all the opportunity to look good in this suit. They make it so comfortable that it doesn't make other people it fits no matter where Kyle goes. Him wearing this nice suit, even in the most casual places, the way Kyle carries himself, the way I carry myself, it just works with the suit. And he's Filipino, so he's a little bit tanned, and that's Kyle. He has colorful side shave hair. Basically, I'm describing how I would look because that's how all my characters look. They look like myself, so it's a lot easier to cosplay them.
That is very smart. I have to know, what color is Kyle's hair?
Kyle's hair is a mixture of blue, pink, and purple. Sometimes it's more blue than pink. Sometimes it's more pink than blue. But definitely purple is there.
Can't go wrong with purple hair.
Nope, can't go wrong with that.
So, you've been waiting in this booth for a while, and you're checking your phone again to see if George has said anything or if Winward has said anything, because you're about to just give up and leave, because this is probably getting a little annoying. When you hear the familiar sound of George sliding into the booth across from you. Well, Kyle, it's good to see you.
What time is it? Just to make sure. In the game?
It's probably about 7 or 8 o'clock.
In the evening?
Yeah.
Alright. Hey, boss. Good evening. Thought you weren't gonna show.
I ran into this a little bit of an unexpected conversation, but I would have let you know if I couldn't make it.
Of course.
I'd be an hour after, but...
There have been definitely plenty of times where George has not let me know that he's not coming. Only the next day. Oh, I'm not coming. I'm well, yeah, it's the next day. But I'm not going to bring that up right now. Not in front of my dragon boss.
Yeah, no, that's not the conversation you need to have with your boss.
Of course, boss.
People around you don't seem to notice George at all, which is actually pretty normal.
Yeah.
only people who know notice. Because that's just how the magic works. And he's like, well, good to see you're looking well. Do you have any news for me?
Just a couple of reports of the things that you told me to do. The delivery of the bunnies that you wanted to Madame Aurora has been done. I've also nicked a couple of the things that you want me to get. A couple of the Bane plants that you wanted me to get. I have it. I brought it with me. Don't know if you wanted it now or if you wanted me to drop it off at the locker. But I could drop it off at the locker if that's what you want. I just figured you might want it right now. I believe that's it, other than the normal keeping an eye on Jack, you said? That's who you wanted me to keep an eye on this week. He wasn't really doing much, just worried about his normal day, went to work, then boring normal human stuff. And that's pretty much it. That's all I got for you, boss.
That is good to know, and thank you so much for getting those jobs done, Kyle. I know I can always count on you. If you want, you can go ahead and hand the Bane over. I'll take it from here.
Awesome. And I do pull out a small Ziploc bag full of little different plants that were clippings gotten from different parts of town. They don't know what they are, but George is given very specific pictures and instructions on what plants he wanted to get. And, here you go.
And he takes the bag, looks at it, and nods, like, wonderful, wonderful. And then he pulls this little notebook out of his pocket, which you recognize it, because it's where he keeps the records of debts, and he scratches a couple things on there. That's a little bit off. You notice anything interesting around town? Anything I should be aware of?
Not anything I've noticed. It's a pretty quiet town. That's why I came here after all.
That's true, that's true. A lot of interesting things going on around with that stranger fellow. Which so there was a stranger that showed up in town about 3 months ago.
Oh, yeah.
And he hasn't outright said it, but you get the feeling George is curious about this person. You've probably seen the stranger in passing. You've never actually interacted with him or seen his face.
Yeah.
But he kind of very quickly got in with several of the faction leaders, which is strange because they don't usually get along. And there's also been a string of 4 disappearances. One of them was about 3 days ago, and they all started after the stranger arrived.
George, I don't know much about your world. I'm all new to this. What I do know is that this guy, the stranger guy, he's an interesting fellow. Like, normally, you don't get the kind of trust that he got with the leaders that quickly or that easily, unless he gave them something that he wanted, or told them something that they would be afraid of. Again, like I said, I'm merely a human, and I don't know anything about your world until very much recently.
Well, you know a lot about tricks and cons. If this was just another con man, what do you think he would be after? What would you be after if you were making moves like he seems to be making?
I don't think he's a con man. You see, con mans like myself, we don't want to make waves. We don't want people to remember us. We don't want the attention. Makes it easier for us to run away or hide when we're done. The stranger guy, he wants to be known. He wants to be seen. He wants the leaders to notice him. I think, and take it with a grain of salt, of course, I think he's trying to get power.
Oh, you don't give yourself enough credit, my friend. I believe you may be right. He's been making some pretty big moves and making a lot of people uneasy, yet there's not a lot known about him. It'd be useful if someone could fix that. I don't suppose you've heard or seen anything?
Not very recently, I admit. I can try to get a little bit closer. But as you know, I don't have much in the way of connections here. You're my only connection, boss. Other things I can figure out if you let me. But if that's what you want me to do, I can definitely do it.
I am certain with your resourcefulness you can find a way to make some friends with people. I know I'm not the only one who is curious, and there might have been someone going in to talk to the faction leaders earlier today with some concerns, but I don't believe they paid her much mind. She's quite the bold little thing. Be a shame if anything happened.
Did you want me to talk to her?
If you get the chance to find her. I don't know where she is now, but imagine she wouldn't be too hard for you to find. She is the, and he does air quotes, the last oracle of Ogridge. Which, you know he's talking about Cass. Cass is the only oracle that's living in Ogridge right now. She's the only one that stayed.
Yeah. You know, before I came here, I would have thought all of this was just superstitial nonsense. But hey, I'm talking to you, George, who, may I say, is a fine-looking dragon. And I can turn into a demon form. I'm sure I can find this last oracle for you to ask them questions.
Might be good if you can find more information on the stranger for me. I don't like people playing around in my playground, and he is making some moves I don't particularly appreciate. He's starting to get this hard edge to his voice, and would you like to roll to, I think it's figure someone out?
Yes, please. Actually,
Figure someone out. When you try to figure someone out, roll with mind. On a hit, ask 2. On a 7 to 9, they ask you as 1 as well. If you're in their circle, ask an additional question.
are they in my circle? I believe Wild is my circle.
Yes, and I am running that he is some kind of fae being just for when it comes to circles and stuff, so he is also wild in power, so yes.
Alright. So that means I add an additional question. Technically, I rolled an 8. So
Partial success, he'll ask you 1. Who's pulling your character's strings? What's your character's beef with blank? What does your character worry is going to happen? How could I get your character to blank? Or how could I put your character in my debt?
Alright. What is your character hoping to get from the stranger?
Well, you don't just come into this town with no names and no connections and build up a network this person has. I would appreciate understanding more about who they are and how they do what they do. Also appreciate having them off of my turf if they end up being not friendly. It translates to learn from them, befriend them, or get them the hell off my lawn, basically.
Sounds good, George. You know, not that I don't like working for you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I'm glad you like it. You'll be working for me for a long time still, as he taps his pen against the notebook, which contains just how many years you have left to work off.
And that's perfectly wonderful. Out of curiosity, would you ever give me a parole of sorts? What could I do to mutually, of course, release this contract? I'm just out of curiosity, of course. course, George. Not that I'm in a hurry.
He thinks for a second, and before he answers, can I get another plus mind roll? Just roll plus mind?
Sure.
And I'll give you a +1, because I imagine you've gotten decently good at reading George at this point.
That's 11 minus 1 plus the 1, so it's 11.
As he responds, you get the feeling he's trying to play it cool, but there's a gleam in his eye. And as he says, well, I mean, any information on this individual would be incredibly beneficial to me and to my business, which you would benefit from, and you can find a way to, say, eliminate him, then that might be enough to call your half of the debt settled.
Eliminate? Well,
this person may be an enigma, but I get the feeling, and many of us do, that he is a far bigger threat than most realize, especially the faction leaders. But as usual, they're in his pocket as well as many other people, including George. This person is a problem. He's a problem for me, and he's a problem for you. If he goes away, maybe you'll find yourself with more time to focus on spending time with people you care about. Or the person.
of course, George. Well, thank you for that information. Rest assured, I'll be thinking about it a lot. But I'll make my way. I'll take care of it as best as I can.
I'm sure you will, Kyle. I know I can always count on you.
Of course, George. Is there anything else you would want me to do for you? Anything else you want to do?
Well, George doesn't have anything left. But if you want to have Kyle start poking around a bit.
For sure. Well, George, as always, it's a pleasure to meet and hang out. This place is great, as you've said. And I am going to go.
Until next time, just do stay safe out there. I get the feeling the stranger may not like people poking around in his business, so watch out who you ask. And George gets up and leaves with that comment.
See ya. Kyle finishes the food that he has in front of him and also walks out. The first thing probably Kyle is going to do is try to find out when the stranger arrived. Did he arrive before Kyle, after Kyle? Because Kyle is new.
Would you like to roll to hit the streets? Find someone to talk to?
Yeah, let's do that.
Well, name who you're going to and roll with their circle.
I don't know anybody, but I am going to go to probably...
You probably know some of, the local watering holes where people gather and so forth. Place where there's going to be the most gossip because that's where George has had you hanging out.
How's transport into this place, actually? Into the village, into the town? Is there a nearby airport, bus station, train station?
There's McGee Tyson Airport that's in Knoxville. There is a public transit system as well as cabs. And that's about all I remember. There's some trains, but I don't know if there's commuter trains or not.
Right. Okay. I'm going to go to a bar that would be nearest to a bus. I assume Kyle came in using the Greyhound if they had it there.
Mm-hmm.
Basically arrived on the bus with nothing else but themselves, and is kind of curious if that's how the stranger arrived into town, and would probably go to a nearby bar in that area just to see if the stranger's arrival at that time made any impression at all. So
Alright.
sort of like a hit the streets in that sort of sense.
In that case, you're probably just rolling with Mortalis.
Awesome. That's another 11. That's great.
Nice. Okay, on hit, they're available and have the stuff.
All right. I'm going to go to that bar and I'm going to wait until the bartender is free and they're not busy. And I will engage in the conversation.
Does this bartender know Kyle?
Yes, because this would be the first bar that Kyle himself had come into and did the same thing when he had first arrived in town.
Alright. Well, hey, you wait a couple minutes before the bartender notices you and he comes over and is like, "Hey Kyle, what do you need? What you looking for?"
Hey, can I just have, trying to think of a cool drink.
My brain immediately went gin and tonic, and I don't know why, but if you want to steal that, go for it.
Hey, a White Russian, please.
Coming right up.
When you got the time, I'd like to have a conversation with you.
Well, let me get your drink, and I'll bring the conversation too.
Alright, thanks.
This is a very friendly person.
Can I name him?
Go for it.
His name is Brad.
His name is Brad, and he is genuinely friendly person. May or may not be aware of any of the magical stuff going on in town, but he takes pride in making sure his guests feel welcome and is not afraid to kick people out of the bar if they're being mean.
I love Brad.
Yes. I'm like, this is going to be a likable NPC. This is not going to be like Chad, the tiny little 12-year-old nightmare capitalist who's been 12 for God knows how long.
Who is this Chad? I need to meet this kid.
May or may not be the kid of one of the wizards that runs the lab.
Oh my gosh.
Dad gave me the opportunity to make Chad canon, so Chad is canon.
Awesome.
Yeah, so he steps away for a couple seconds, fixing drinks, and like, alright, here you go, one white Russian, and what are you looking to talk about?
Do you usually notice when people come here for the first time, like to the town? I know you're near the Greyhound, but I'm kind of curious if you ever pay attention to any new people, that come in.
Well, sure I do. They always look pretty dang lost when they wander in the first time.
Did you ever see one that didn't seem lost? Like they knew what they were doing the moment they stepped in and clearly they're not from around here?
I'm gonna have a roll happen. I'm gonna roll a thing. That doesn't happen a lot in this, but I'm gonna roll a thing.
Awesome.
Now that you mention it, he didn't come in on his way here, but the wolf pack leader, because it is now canon that he is aware of magical stuff.
Okay.
Well,
Awesome.
I imagine there's supernatural beings that come in this way too. The wolf pack leader came in with a buddy of his, was a stranger, not someone I recognized from being around town, but he seemed overly familiar with this building. And also a little too familiar with some of the people. It's like, I know he ain't from around here, but he did seem to recognize some people who I know ain't never been out of this town.
That's interesting.
I kind of figured maybe he was one of those Oracle fellas, but I don't think that's how that actually works.
Yeah, there's only one here. One in this town.
Yeah. It's weird that she's still here. Usually they've done left by now.
Speaking of which, have you seen her lately?
I mean, she doesn't usually come around here, but I've seen her around town. She sometimes hangs out with that vampire lady who bought the theater. Nice lady.
Yeah. I haven't had the pleasure. I'm new here too, Brad. Is there anything else you can tell me about that stranger guy? Like, did you ever get a name?
Funny enough, I didn't for some reason I didn't feel a need to ask. He just being around that fella felt weird. Like something didn't belong or didn't fit. Kind of glad when he left. Sorry I can't be more helpful, but he wasn't here very long.
No, Brett, that's totally fine. Thanks. You've helped plenty. I guess it's totally fine. Thanks. If you do see him again, would you hit me up? Kyle writes his phone number onto a piece of paper and gives it to Brad. Just hit me up, if you have any information about him. George is inquiring. And, you know what I gotta do what George says.
He looked a little confused at your question until you mentioned George, and he just nodded. Just like, yeah, we don't see a lot of him, but George is a good, if kind of weird and shady fella. I mean, no offense, of course. He's...
Yeah.
Interesting to know he's looking into the stranger. A lot of people asking around about him. There's someone else, now that I think about it. Someone else came in a couple weeks ago asking some of the same question. That little... Roz, she's that little conspiracy theorist. She had some questions about him. She was trying to figure out where he's from or how he got here.
Huh. Do I know who Roz is?
Would you like to roll to put a face to a name?
Sure, let's do that.
So roll with their circle. She is Mortalis. On hit, you know their reputation. On a 10+, you've dealt with them before.
Alright. It is 7 + 1 is an 8.
Alright, so you've heard of her. She is one of the people that is aware of the supernatural world. Most of the conversations and gossip around her, people think she's a little nuts. She's actually, she's close friends with Cass, the Oracle. Big time conspiracy theorist. She's usually onto something that actually is something. But what she thinks it is it always incorrect.
Right. Is she aware?
Yes.
Alright, well, you know what, Brad? That's quite helpful. Maybe I will pay a visit to either Roz or Cass. You said you've seen Cass around that theater with the vampire lady?
Yeah. I think she does some acting there.
Alright, well, I'm gonna go ahead and close my tab, and I pay and give Brad a very nice tip because I got paid from Windward, and Windward pays me really well.
Yes, he does, because Windward is great.
Yes, Wardy is great. And I'm gonna go ahead and head on towards, depending on the time, I'm probably gonna try to head on towards the theater, but not make myself known. I'm gonna stealth it up just to see, just because George said Cass has been missing.
He didn't say anything about Cass being missing.
Why did I hear somebody been missing or hasn't been seen?
There have been 4 people who disappeared.
But it wasn't Cass.
No.
Okay.
Cass is just somebody he's interested to talk to.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and look for Cass then, just to tell them about how George is interested in talking to them then. But I won't barge in since it's probably late already.
Just like a subtle happen to be walking by the theater, if you notice a car, he'll go in and talk?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that actually leads well into a very fun reveal for you. No need to be concerned about how I phrase that.
It'll be fun, yeah.
Yeah, so you walk by the Elsa Theater. It's a bit ramshackle. It's been burned down at least twice, almost completely, but it's being rebuilt. It's coming along pretty well. They've started having events again. And as you get close, there's a couple of police cars outside.
Huh.
Do you investigate?
I'm staying back a little bit from the cops, but I'm trying to see if there's anybody around that could just be standing around and be like, hey, what's going on there?
I'll say that you see there's like a group of people huddled around. They're people you wouldn't know. It's the people that live inside the theater. They've come out, and one of them is being interviewed, but the rest are just kind of huddled around each other, and there are some other people who happen to be walking by coming up to talk to them, people that know them.
I'm gonna go ahead towards them and just sort of out of curiosity be like, hey, what happened over there?
We don't know. We don't know exactly what happened, but someone was murdered in the theater. We're not sure who or why.
Murdered?
Another person pipes up. My husband's the one that saw it. He says it was Cass.
Wait, who was murdered?
Cassandra Pravda?
Oh, shit.
Tempest Multi is a production of Pseudonym Social, changing reality one story at a time. It is an actual play podcast using Urban Shadow's 2E Quick Start Guide, and it's set once again in the town of Oak Ridge, Tennessee. I am your keeper and producer.
Hi, I'm Glyza. I will be playing Kyle of the Tainted Playbook.
To get more information on this or any of our other shows, check out our website at pseudonymsocial.com.
Hello, Zero here, onboard AI of the SSS Destiny's Child, welcoming you to the We Suck at D&D podcast.
Now watch out, the next part might shock you.
Do you like lasers? And explosions? And interdimensional travel through a world-eating boy?
Well, then this show might be for you. Hi, Kirk, the DM here for We Suck at D&D podcast. If you want something a little out of the norm, come check us out. You can find us at wesuckpodcast.wixsite.com. Come follow us and go
Yawn.